Hi, I'm Jenny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm really excited today to bring to you Andrea Hylen, who is speaking at our Connections Over Coffee gathering. And Andrea is speaking on 10 simple rituals for connecting with your ancient ancestors. Andrea believes in the power of our voices to usher in a new world. She is the founder of Heal My Voice and The Incubator, an online co-working space for women with writing and creativity support and coaching. She's worked with hundreds of women and men who've written stories of trauma, loss, and grief to heal an old story, reclaim inner authority, and step into greater leadership in their lives. She is also a practitioner in ancestral lineage healing in the ancestral medicine community of Daniel 4 and a psychopomp guide. For current programs, you can go to andreahylen.com and check out all that she offers, and that is in the text of this video as well. Andrea, thank you for being with us today.
Jenny, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you to all the women who came to the meeting to have a conversation about this topic. 10 simple rituals for connecting with ancient ancestors. I want to say that there's two things I want to say up front. One is that I'm going to post a link to a PDF, 18-page PDF that has all of the 10 simple rituals for connecting with ancient ancestors, and it has more detail than I'm going to cover in this talk today. So that will be wherever the recording is, I'm going to put it in the comment sections, and I've shared it with the group. And partly because I want you to just kind of dive in to this topic and let it stir within you. For the past few years, I've talked about ancestral lineage healing during the month of December because it's a time of year that reminds us of all kinds of things with family and community and traditional practices. And I am interchangeably using the words ritual, tradition, holidays, because there's different ways that we think of these things. There are different words that we have from them. But I know that between like October to January, there are just times where we're reminiscing about traditions, childhood memories that include tenderness, joy, loss, even trauma and grief. And you might this year be reflecting on how things are different this year. You might be remembering people who are no longer here with you. And thank you, Ellen, for bringing that into the conversation earlier. And you might even be reflecting on how connected or disconnected you feel in your family or community because of some of the losses this year, or just because this is a year you're thinking about that, and that there's a lot of change that's going on. So I like to think of rituals and the importance of rituals as a way to deepen the connection we have with the living and with the unseen spirits of your ancestors. Rituals and traditions can help unravel old patterns, which I am calling burdens, that have been passed down your lineage, while also having a chance to bring more of the blessings, the gifts, the talents of your lineages to the living. So because you know you've got a PDF with all of these rituals, I'm going to just kind of go off script and riff a little bit about this. Because as I was like making some talking points over the past few days, a few things started changing. First of all, if you can see, if my fingers look funny to you, it's because yesterday I was making Play-Doh with my 2.5-year-old grandson, and I just decided to get right in there with that food coloring. So my hands are kind of blue, purple, red. It is from food dye. But making that with him reminded me of how a few days ago, all three of my daughters were in Maryland at the same time. And it was kind of a crazy time because, my daughter from Los Angeles flew in to meet her new niece and her young niece. And we decided to do cookie baking, which is something that I did with my kids when they were little and that I learned from my mother. So I was making sugar cookies and um and it was like the one day we were together because the other thing that happened while my daughter was here was that one of the households, everybody got the flu. So their opportunity was to care for each other, who's not sick and who's doing the caretaking and sometimes that's also tradition or ritual when we're caring for other people. But the thing that I thought about was as I was taking charge of this, making sugar cookies and having the cookie cutters out for the grandkids, my older two daughters were saying, "Wait, Mom, how is it that you do this thing?" Or what is that? How did you get that recipe to this? And so I did a little bit of teaching about when to mix the sugar cookies and when to put them back in the refrigerator because if there's butter in the recipe, it gets too soft and I realized in that moment that I was passing on a tradition. I was passing on, this was not just, oh, it's a tradition. It was actually a ritual where I had set up all of the ingredients. I talked them through what we were doing, why we do it this way. Ritual comes kind of with a set of, I'll just call them rules, which are still changeable. Let's change the traditions. They don't have to always stay the same way. But there was something about passing on this ritual of cooking and how you do that. So it's a way that we form connection. And so there were three generations there that were all connected. And the generations of our ancestors who also made this recipe and who are no longer part of the living was being passed on. So I just want to focus on that as a way to deepen our connection. And I'm going to shift now to more about ancient ancestors, because one of the reasons that since becoming an ancestral lineage healing practitioner, that I focus a lot on ancient ancestors is because the ancient ancestors had earth honoring rituals where the dead were well celebrated and honored. And many of those traditions have been lost. And so the burdens on the lineages, I believe, have increased over time because we've lost this connection to the cycles of life and death, that we're not really talking about them, or it's not a part of it. So I was, like I mentioned Ellen, I was so happy that she brought that in, talking about loved ones who are in spirit now. Just briefly, connecting with my ancestors, this is just my background. It began when I was a child, that we never lived near our relatives, but whenever we visited in the summer or during the holidays, the interactions had a great impact on me. Walking in the cemetery with my grandmother, who would then point out relatives who were in that cemetery, and hearing stories about the ancestors, collecting shells on the beach on Cape Cod, and then eating the beach plum jelly that my grandmother made by picking berries off of the land. Then staying in touch with a grandfather and grandmother through letter writing, where they shared stories about their lives and the wisdom that was gained over time. So genealogy and an emphasis on loyalty to family was instilled at a young age. My father was first generation Swedish American on his father's side, and my mother is a Mayflower descendant on her father's side. And those lineages were a pride to both of them. So a focus on family was valued and it was important to me. But then when in my 20s, I began to see the family dysfunction of alcoholism. I began to learn more about the harm of colonialism. I started to study and figure out where's the harm and what can I do about it, because I cared about my family. So it led me to Al-Anon and working with a therapist around family constellation work, and unraveling the codependency, the trauma, the grief. Then fast forward to 2017, when I was 61 years old, and I began to see a series of incidents that had the effects of intergenerational trauma on the living that had still not been healed, even though I'd had 4 decades plus of personal growth work. It was like, wow, why is this still here? And, working with Heal My Voice clients really did, and writing my own stories of trauma, loss, and grief had in many ways just shaken up the family. It hadn't brought healing, it had brought awareness, but the dysfunction continued. And so I began to study ancestral lineage healing and then connected with the ancient ancestors in spirit to ask them for help. My intention in sharing the 10 simple ritual ideas, which I'm going to get into now, is to focus on different ways to actually amplify the blessings of your lineage with well ancestors in spirit. And like I said, all of this is in the PDF. So before I just go through the 10 simple rituals, I want to share one other thing. Something that has really impacted me doing the ancestral lineage healing work is recognizing that I used to just call on ancestors. And like that's a lot of energy where you call on your ancestors to just like come into your house or come into your space. So I've learned that before doing any kind of ritual, I set up ritual safety and protection. And that actually, I have an audio in the PDF that gives you a demonstration of how to do that kind of practice. But part of it, I just want to highlight, have respect for the power that is in this liminal, unseen world. And the basics are begin with a practice of calling on a trusted guide, an angel, a deity, a land spirit, an energy that you feel supported by, that you can trust. And then ask them to clear the energetic space around you, clear out anything that is intrusive or negative, that is not welcome in your space. And then ask them to set up a boundary for their practice, for, for ritual practice. And when you go into a meditative state, call on all your ancestors who are well. Call on vibrantly well ancestors. It is not a rejection of those who are unhealed. It is actually good ritual practice, and it supports you in having around you the well ancestors who can then help those who are unwell. And I'll just give you an example. It's like opening the door and inviting everyone into a party. And then you are also opening up the space. You call on your ancestors, and your neighbors' ancestors come over, and all these other spirits think they can just come into your space. It's like announcing on Facebook that you're going to have a party and saying, come on into my house, and everybody just take whatever you want. And having that kind of ritual practice with setting boundaries will actually translate into setting boundaries with the living. So that's one of the benefits of doing that. And that's why I set up safety and ritual. Surround yourself with those who are well in spirit. All right, let's go into some of these. So the first one is to create an ancestor altar. And this is a first step in building a relationship with your ancestors. If you've never done this before, you can begin with something simple. You could just have a candle on a table and use this as a place to sit and share a cup of coffee, a cup of tea. You can sing songs, read poetry, or sit in silence. It's a way of acknowledging your vibrantly well ancestors and letting them know that you are open to a conversation. So this is a ritual. This simple act of acknowledging your ancestors can begin to bring healing to the past, present, and future. If you've ever seen a tradition of someone bringing flowers to a gravesite, to me, it's a similar type of thing where you're just saying, I see you, I honor you, I want you to be part of my life. And in the PDF, I've given you some other ideas on how to set up an ancestor altar. But the one tip that I would say is if you were calling it an ancestor altar, which implies that everyone has died, then only have photos of people who have passed on and died. Don't include anyone living on the ancestor altar. Like you can have family photos and friend photos all over your house, anywhere in your house. But on the altar for ancestors, only have people who have died, no pictures with anyone who is alive still. Okay, the second ritual is to make a list of blessings. And this is blessings that you know about your ancestors, as in talents, skills, gifts that have been passed down to the living. You can separate the blessings by each lineage and notice where there's an overlap. And this is like a focus on each of the grandparent lines, is the way that I say it. Like your mother's parents or the mother's mother's line and the mother's father's line. So this long line of grandmothers and grandfathers. Father's parents are the father mother line and the father father line. Long line of grandmothers, long line of grandfathers. And if you knew your parents, your grandparents, great grandparents, just think about things that they did for work or hobbies, add that to the list of blessings. For example, I have a lineage on my mother's father's side that there's a line of grandfathers who were all writers, authors, and publishers, which I take on as a blessing from that line. And on my father's side, there's a lineage of woodworkers and carpenters. It skipped a generation with my father. Do not even put a hammer in his hand. It's like he would get injured. But my brother and my grandson have that. And so it's a natural talent and skill that's on this long line of the Swedish grandfathers. The third ritual is to practice gratitude with your ancient ancestors. And I want to just shine a light on something. Personal growth can really have you focused on looking at the challenges, the burdens, the problems in your life and living family, which it's necessary to see it, to feel it, to bring awareness to where the burdens have been in your family. But I have found that when you start to make a list of blessings and you have a simple gratitude practice, which can be sitting at the altar and thanking your ancestors for your life and for keeping the lineage alive during the hardships that were present in the generations that came before you. So ask them, as you're sitting and thanking them, ask them to help you amplify the blessings. Yeah, so just let that one land. Like ask them to help you amplify the blessings in the line. Because even when you can see, well, say ritual 4 is practice forgiveness. So making a list of burdens on the line may help you to determine where your attention can be for forgiveness, and peeling away kind of what the burdens were and just noting that blessings on a lineage can actually become burdens. For example, hard workers with determination could be a blessing that helped your lineage survive. And then in modern times, it becomes workaholism that creates emotional distance and avoidance in the family. I mean, my grandfather shared so many amazing blessings with me and my children, but he was also an alcoholic, a misogynist, a racist. And by acknowledging the burdens and beginning to understand, bringing more compassion in to why those burdens were there, how that actually helped his lineage survive, now I can unpeel for that and I can carry on with the blessings and let the rest go. Ritual 5 is research the history of your ancestors. If you know when they traveled to another county or country, learn about what was happening historically. Why did they leave? If you know through DNA testing where some of your ancestors were from, then you can learn about some of the challenges and hardships during different times on the land. What did they endure? And you can have, I call this a ritual because part of it is you can reactivate the blessings from your lineage by listening to languages of your lineage. There's so much available to us through YouTube. You can find what was the language that they were speaking. And then you don't have to understand the language cognitively, but you could hear it. You could listen to the ancient music of your ancestors. Let that awaken the blessings that are here. I'm going to do two things here because I'm just watching the time. One, I want to pause with you for a moment, and then I'm going to just quickly go through the other rituals. But what I want to invite you to take a moment is to just pause and actually take a breath. Place a hand on your heart. Close your eyes and breathe. And I want you to remember a time where you felt really seen in a glorious way. Like someone acknowledged the work you do, a gift you bring with your presence, or an action you took. So just sit with that for a minute and remember how it felt to be really seen as who you are. Now, as we return to talk about these other 5 rituals quickly for connecting with our ancient ancestors, I want you to notice how being seen and acknowledged brought an aliveness and vibrancy into your body, mind, and spirit. And each one of the rituals that I'm sharing with you are about bringing that kind of aliveness and vibrancy to ancestors that you may have no idea even who they were, but that you're tapping back into this DNA connection that you have there to help build a relationship with the blessings and this becomes available then to you in a living body and to the other living relatives. So the final 5, number 1 is, or ritual 6 is set a place at the table. Set a place with dishes, a chair for your well ancestors. It can be a symbol of welcoming them into your home. And if you know the language that they spoke, you can write the word welcome in their language and place it at the table. Let them know that they are welcome in your home. Ritual 7 is to use oracle cards. And in the PDF, I have some ideas on how to make your own oracle cards if you want to do that, or you can purchase some tarot cards or oracle cards and just do a reading by asking your ancestors a question and using those as a divination tool for answers. Ritual 8 is keep a dream journal. And when I talk about dream time and inviting your vibrantly well ancestors to bring messages to you while you're dreaming, that can also be daydreams. So night dreams, daydreams, just keep a notebook around where you write down insights that you receive from your ancestors. And on the same, kind of the same way, ritual 9 is meditate and ask questions. Just ask them questions. You can even ask them, hey, I had this dream and I feel like my ancestors were there. Can you tell me more about what that means? And so you can do that in meditation. Ritual 10 is to build a relationship with nature. And again, it's a way to amplify the blessings of your lineage. And whether you see nature as kin or ancestors or something else, the focus is to build a relationship and then reflect on that connection that you have. And finally, because really rituals, traditions, holidays, celebrations are all about connection. The bonus that I have in the PDF is to focus on this winter season that you have right now in the Northern Hemisphere. And to ask, like, use this stillness to think about your ancestors. Light a candle at the new moon or the full moon. Send them love and gratitude. Ask them questions about how they honored the darkest time of the year and to show you what was different. What did our ancestors know that we have forgotten? What are you longing to reconnect with during this season of stillness and dark? Light a candle and listen. Thank you all for being here. And thank you, Jenny, for the opportunity once again to speak about things that I'm passionate about. So thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Andrea. I got to go load that PDF right now. And I do apologize. You probably saw it pop up on the screen. Did you see that?
Mm,
It didn't. I thought that yeah, maybe it didn't. I will put that link to your PDF in the text of the video as well. So,
great. Thank you.
but I want everyone here who's with us on Zoom, please unmute so we can appreciate Andrea, give her some applause and some yays and
Woo! That was amazing.
Thank you all.
thank
Thank you all for being
Yay,
here.
ashe, ashe.
And thank you to anyone who's watching this live or the replay on our YouTube channel. Please check out all the other women on our channel who share their gifts, their wisdom, and their expertise to inspire you to move forward, whether it's about your business or other parts of your life. If you want to join us for one of our Zoom gatherings or an in-person gathering, go to my website, opwgc.com, and find out everything you need to know. That link is also in the text of this video, as is the link to Andrea's PDF and to her website. Thanks again for watching.